3 weeks after my father's funeral, I finally stood in front of the only door I had feared my entire life. It was the same old wooden door that had stayed locked for 25 years. My father never let anyone near it, not me when I was 7, not when I became 18, not even after I turned 30. Every time I asked, he would smile with sadness and say, "One day you'll understand." I hated that answer, but now he was gone. And the key was lying inside the envelope with my name on it. I had no idea that opening that door would destroy everything I believed about my family, and reveal a truth so heartbreaking that I wished I had never found it. My father locked one room for 25 years. When I finally opened it, my entire life changed. 3 weeks after my father's funeral, I stood alone in the hallway of the old house where I had grown up. The house was silent. No footsteps. No radio. No smell of coffee. Just silence and one locked wooden door at the end of the hallway. For 25 years, that door had remained closed. When I was 7 years old, I asked my father what was inside. He smiled gently, placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "Not yet, son." When I turned 18, I asked again. His smile disappeared. "Please, don't ask me about that room." At 30, I tried one last time. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "One day, after I'm gone, you'll understand." I thought he was simply hiding money. Or old family secrets. Maybe another family. I never imagined the truth. The day before he died, the hospital called. He was too weak to speak much. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was an old brass key. On the back he had written only 7 words. "Open it only after I am gone." 3 weeks later, there I was, holding the same key. My hands were shaking. The lock hadn't moved in decades. It groaned loudly. The door slowly opened. A cold breeze escaped the room. Dust floated through the sunlight. The smell of old paper filled the air. I stepped inside. The room wasn't full of gold. It wasn't filled with weapons. It wasn't another family's bedroom. Instead, it looked like time had stopped. Everything inside seemed untouched for 25 years. A tiny wooden bed. A shelf full of children's books. Small shoes neatly placed beside the bed. Toy cars. Building blocks. A teddy bear. Everything was perfectly clean. As if someone had been taking care of it every single day. Then I noticed something that made my heart stop. On the wall, there were hundreds of photographs. Every single picture showed me, from the day I was born until I was 5 years old. But beside me, there was another little boy. He looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same smile, same hair. My knees became weak. Who was he? I searched every corner of the room. Inside a wooden cabinet, I found dozens of photo albums. Every album showed both of us growing together. Birthday parties, playing football, sleeping in the same bed, holding hands. I couldn't remember any of it. Not even one moment. How was that possible? Then, I noticed a leather diary. Across the cover, my father's handwriting. "If my son ever enters this room." I slowly opened the first page. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry I lied to you. But I promised someone I would never tell you until after my death." My heart was racing. The next sentence changed everything. "You were not born alone." I froze. "You had a twin brother." My eyes filled with tears. "A twin." I kept reading. "His name was Daniel. We were inseparable. According to my father's diary, When we were 5 years old, our family went camping in the mountains. Late at night, Daniel disappeared. Police searched for weeks. Volunteers searched forests. Helicopters flew overhead. Nothing. No footprints. No clothes. No body. He simply vanished. My mother never recovered. Every single day she waited by the window. She believed Daniel would come home. Months later, she became seriously ill. The doctor said it wasn't disease. It was grief. She died the following year. My father blamed himself. He blamed the camping trip. He blamed every decision he ever made. But there was one more sentence. One sentence that made my blood run cold. Daniel didn't disappear by accident. I turned the page. There was a newspaper clipping. Local boy suspected kidnapped. Kidnapped. The police never solved the case. There were no witnesses. No suspects. No evidence. My father spent 25 years searching. Every birthday, he placed a new toy inside this room. Every Christmas, he wrapped 2 presents. One for me. One for Daniel. Every night, he came into this room, sat beside the empty bed, and prayed. I couldn't stop crying. I thought I knew my father. I knew nothing. Then, a small tape recorder caught my attention. Beside it, a cassette. A note read, "Play this last." My hands trembled as I pressed the button. Static filled the room. Then, my father's voice. Older. Weak. "Hello, son. If you're hearing this, I couldn't tell you in person. Because every time I tried, I saw the pain returning to your eyes. The doctors believed your mind erased Daniel to protect you. They warned me never to force those memories back. So I carried the secret alone. Every day. For 25 years. I visited this room because it was the only place where I could still feel close to your mother and your brother. If I failed you, forgive me. I only wanted you to have a chance to live without that pain. But before I leave this world, there's one final thing you must know. I held my breath. Last month, I received a letter. A letter. Someone claimed Daniel may still be alive. The recording ended. Silence. I searched everywhere. Finally, inside the last drawer, I found the letter. No return address. Only one sentence. If you still believe, come to Black River Bridge on October 14th. The date was tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I drove 3 hours to Black River Bridge. Rain poured heavily. No one was there. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 30. Just as I turned to leave, an elderly man slowly approached. He looked at me for a long time. Then he whispered, "You have your father's eyes." He handed me another envelope. Inside, a recent photograph. A middle-aged man, standing beside 2 children. On the back, only 3 words. His name changed. The old man explained. A child trafficking group had operated in the area decades earlier. Some children were taken, given new identities, raised by different families. Most were never found. Daniel may have survived, but finding him now would be almost impossible. The man looked at me and said, "Sometimes hope is the only family we have left." I drove home with tears in my eyes. Back inside the locked room, I placed the photograph beside the old albums. For the first time, the room no longer felt like a prison. It felt like hope. Every year now, on my father's birthday, I unlock that door. I clean the room. I replace the flowers. And I leave one empty chair. Just in case. One day, someone finally walks through that door, looks into my eyes, and says, "Brother, I finally found my way home." Story continuation, about 5 minutes voiceover. I couldn't let it end there. That photograph stayed in my mind every single day. The man standing beside those two children. His face looked familiar. Not because I remembered him, but because when I looked into the mirror, I saw pieces of him in myself. For the next 6 months, I spent every weekend searching. I visited old police stations. I talked to retired detectives. I met journalists who had covered missing children cases decades ago. Most of them told me the same thing. After 25 years, people don't come back. But I refused to believe it. Then one rainy afternoon, an old detective called me. "I found something," he said. "There was one child rescued from the trafficking network years ago." He remembered another little boy, one who had a small birthmark behind his left ear. I froze. Daniel had that birthmark. The detective handed me an old case file. Inside was a single name, Michael Carter. A new identity, a new life. I searched social media for days. Hundreds of people had that name. Then I found one profile. The man in the photo looked almost exactly like me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour before sending a message. "This may sound impossible, but I think we're brothers." No reply. One day passed, then another, a whole week. I began to think I had made a terrible mistake. Late one night, my phone rang, an unknown number. I answered. Neither of us spoke. I could only hear someone breathing. Finally, a quiet voice asked, "Did your father keep a locked room?" Tears filled my eyes. Only one person could have known that. I whispered, "Yes, he did." Man on the other end began crying. "So, he never forgot me." Several minutes, neither of us could speak. We just cried. Two brothers, separated for 25 years. Connected by a single phone call. A week later, we met in person. As he walked toward me, it felt like looking into another version of myself, without saying a word. We hugged. People around us stopped and watched. Neither of us cared. He told me he had spent his entire life feeling that something was missing. He never knew why. His adoptive family had loved him, but they had never told him he was adopted. When they passed away, he discovered old documents hidden inside a box. Those papers led him to the same investigation my father had secretly been following for years. Then he smiled through his tears and asked, "Can I see the room Dad kept for me?" The next morning, I unlocked the door one more time. He slowly walked inside. His eyes landed on the little bed, the toys, the birthday gifts that had been waiting for 25 years. He broke down in tears. He picked up the old teddy bear, held it tightly, and whispered, "Dad, I'm finally home." At that moment, I realized something. My father had died believing he failed, but he hadn't. His love had survived 25 years of silence, and because he never gave up hope, neither did we, sometimes. The greatest miracle isn't finding what was lost, it's discovering that love never stopped waiting. The end.